Don't eat at these 8 UK fast food chains again until you watch this. What if I told you that some of your go-to fast food spots, the ones you've trusted for years, are hiding serious issues behind the scenes? We're talking about everything from questionable food safety to menu items you'd be better off avoiding at all costs. For years, these chains have been serving up more than just burgers and fries. They've been serving up problems that you probably don't know about, but you definitely should before your next visit. So, before you pull up to that drive-thru window, let's take a closer look at the fast food giants that you should probably think twice about before ordering. From the ones that still seem okay to the ones whose reputations have completely fallen apart, we've got the inside scoop on what you're really eating and why you might want to reconsider where you get your next meal. Stick around, because after this, you'll never look at your favorite fast food joint the same way again. So, let's start with one that might surprise you, a classic staple that many of us have turned to for years when we're craving something comforting. Number 8, fish and chips. Shops, chain style. You're craving fish and chips. You think it's going to be a comforting, nostalgic meal. Crispy, golden batter hugging fresh fish, perfectly fried chips on the side. The smell alone brings you back to your childhood. You get to the counter, order your meal, sit down, and that's when it all falls apart. Now, I'm not talking about your local family-run fish and chip shop that's been serving generations of customers with pride. No. I'm talking about the chain-style fish and chips places that seem to have spread across the UK in recent years. Chains like Harry Ramsden's, where the promise of an iconic British meal is often served with a side of disappointment. Let's be clear, chain fish and chips aren't what they used to be. There's been a steep decline in quality, and it's obvious. Many of these restaurants, instead of serving you fresh, hand-cut chips, have opted for frozen fries and pre-battered fish fillets. And that's where things get, well, let's say tasteless. Sure, it might look like it's the real deal when you're staring at it through the glass case, but the reality is that what you're eating was frozen long before it made its way into the fryer, and it doesn't end there. Let's talk about the texture of the fish. At its best, fish and chips should be crispy, with flaky, tender fish inside. But when you're eating at chain fish and chip spots, the batter often comes out soggy, oily, and limp. And the fish itself? It can be rubbery, dense, and even a little greasy, as if it's been sitting in the fryer a little too long or not properly drained. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe I just had an off day. That's exactly what these chain fish and chip spots are counting on. But this issue isn't just a one-off. It's a common complaint from customers who expect quality. When you're paying for a traditional British dish that's supposed to be comforting and wholesome, you're not exactly looking for disappointment in a plastic tray. And hygiene? Well, there have been some major concerns raised over cleanliness in these chain outlets too. From greasy counters to staff who seem overwhelmed, you start to question if your meal is really worth it. After all, we're talking about fish here. It should be fresh, handled properly, and cooked with care, not rushed through a system that focuses on mass production. So, next time you're in the mood for some good old fish and chips, maybe it's best to skip the chains and head for somewhere with a little more soul. But don't worry, the journey doesn't stop there. If you thought chain fish and chips were disappointing, wait till you see what's up next. Number 7, Five Guys. From the soggy, disappointing fish to the overly hyped burger that leaves you questioning your life choices, Five Guys. It's the place where you're meant to get an American-style burger experience that's better than the rest, but somehow it's just not living up to the hype. Five Guys has long been one of the most talked about burger chains in the UK, known for its loaded toppings, hearty portions, and that premium feel. You know the drill. A messy, towering burger stuffed with everything but the kitchen sink, a side of greasy fries piled into a brown paper bag, and a shake that makes you feel like you're in burger heaven. Or at least that's the promise. But when you actually sit down and take your first bite, something feels off. Don't get me wrong, Five Guys is good in many ways. Their burger patties are juicy, the toppings are abundant, and the choice of peanuts while you wait gives off a quirky charm. But what's truly baffling is the price tag. When you're paying a premium for a fast food experience, you expect a level of satisfaction that makes it feel worth it. The thing is, for most people, it doesn't quite hit the mark. You'd think with all that marketing and word-of-mouth buzz that you're about to experience something extraordinary. But more often than not, the experience is average at best. For all the hype, the burger doesn't blow you away like they say it will. The fries, too greasy, with most customers complaining about them being soggy and drenched in salt, but not in a good way. The seasoning seems like it's trying too hard to compensate for what's lacking in the actual food. And then there's the overpriced element. For what it is, Five Guys is definitely a high-end fast food joint, but it feels like a premium price with too many gimmicks. The portions are unnecessarily large, and the fries are piled in such huge quantities that you'd need to be feeding a small army to finish them. Yes, the whole "you'll always leave full" concept sounds great in theory, but let's be real. Sometimes more food doesn't equate to better food. Even worse, the atmosphere feels strangely chaotic. The open kitchen setup might seem authentic, but it's far from it. With customers crammed into tight spaces, the energy of the place is loud and stressful, making the dining experience feel rushed. There's no finesse here, no attempt at making the experience memorable. It's fast food with the volume cranked up, and sometimes that's not what you need. At the end of the day, Five Guys is stuck in an awkward spot. It's marketed as a premium experience, but it doesn't live up to its price tag or reputation. And when you've got competition like Shake Shack and Honest Burgers, Five Guys starts looking more like an overpriced option than the burger paradise they claim to be. But the fun doesn't stop there. As we move forward, we've got even bigger fast food chains that have taken a serious tumble in quality, and we're about to expose them for what they really are. Number 6. Domino's Pizza. We've all been there. After a long day, you're staring at your phone, thinking, Domino's will save me. You've seen the ads, you've heard the hype, and sure, those pizzas are delivered in a snap. But here's the problem. Just because something gets to your door quickly doesn't mean it's good. And when it comes to Domino's, that's exactly what's happening. Fast, but far from satisfying. Let's start with the quality of the pizza itself. While Domino's pushes the idea of fresh, hot, delicious pizza, customers have been complaining for years about the consistency, or rather, the lack of it. It's common to find that your pizza has arrived either too soggy or too dry. The crust, it's supposed to be golden and crisp, but it often comes out overly thick or strangely chewy, like they're trying too hard to make it stuffed without actually giving you the right amount of flavor. And let's not forget the toppings. You ever have that moment where you open the box and wonder if someone forgot to put the cheese on? Domino's isn't shy about loading their pizzas with toppings. But the problem is the uneven distribution. Half of your slice might have a perfect balance of cheese, pepperoni, and sauce, while the other half is basically a sad, doughy void. It's like playing pizza roulette. Sometimes you get that juicy slice, sometimes you get, well, basically a flatbread. But it doesn't end there. Domino's famous garlic butter dip. That stuff is basically pure grease. Thick, oily, and strangely overpowering. Once you dip a slice, you're committed to feeling like you ate a small tub of butter for the next few hours. The excess grease from the crust and the dip can quickly turn your pizza from a treat into a guilty stomachache. And the pizza itself? While it's marketed as hot and fresh, many customers have noted that it arrives lukewarm or cold if there's a delivery delay, which happens more often than you'd think. Domino's delivery system relies on third-party services, and with that, the risk of inconsistency increases. Now, let's talk about the price. The brand has become synonymous with discounts and deals, but those so-called value meals often feel overpriced for the actual quality you're getting. That £15 pizza, you could get a much better pizza from a local, independent pizzeria, and it'd actually be hot when it arrives. So, when Domino's tries to sell you a pizza for more than it's worth, you can't help but think, I paid for this? So, while Domino's is quick and convenient, it's a prime example of getting exactly what you paid for. A fast, mediocre experience that leaves you wondering if you really should have spent the extra few minutes driving somewhere else for better pizza. But enough about the disappointment on your plate. Next up, we've got another pizza giant that's not faring much better in the UK fast food scene. Let's take a look at Papa John's and why it's not the slice of heaven you thought it was. Number 5. Papa John's. Papa John's, the chain that's always been in the shadow of the bigger pizza players, yet somehow manages to hold on to its place in the market. You've probably tried it after hearing that better ingredients, better pizza line. But if we're being honest, better ingredients don't always equal better pizza, especially when you're dealing with a brand that misses the mark in so many ways. The first thing we need to address is the price. Papa John's has made a name for itself with its premium pizza image. But here's the problem, it's really not premium. The base pizza price is high, and when you add extra toppings or opt for any of their more complicated orders, you'll be hit with a steep bill. You're paying for the brand and the advertising more than the pizza itself. For what you're getting, it doesn't match the quality. It's a lot of dough, pun intended, for something that feels pretty basic. Let's talk crust, because it's not doing Papa John's any favors. Sure, they're famous for their crust stuffed with cheese, but it's exactly this gimmick that undermines the quality of the entire pizza. The cheese-stuffed crust is often greasy and overpowering, leaving you to wonder why you're consuming all that extra oil and fat when the pizza itself could be much better without it. It might sound like a fun novelty, but in reality, it just adds unnecessary weight and too much cheese without much flavor depth. And let's be honest, the better ingredients aren't exactly shining through when you're biting into an oily crust. As for the pizza toppings, they're often a letdown. Sure, Papa John's offers a wide variety of toppings, but they don't always deliver on quality. The pepperoni tends to be too thin and bland, the vegetables are lackluster, and the cheese doesn't always melt in the way you expect, sometimes leaving clumps of it awkwardly stuck to the dough. It's not the better pizza you were promised, but the real kicker is the customer service. While some locations are great, Papa John's, as a brand, has had multiple complaints about poor service, delayed deliveries, and cold pizzas. And when your pizza arrives cold, you can't help but feel that you've been shortchanged, especially when you've paid premium prices. The delivery drivers often show up with a pizza that feels like it was sitting in the back of their car for far too long. And trust me, you'll feel the difference. The pizza is often not the same by the time it reaches your door, and that's the worst kind of letdown. Papa John's wants to position itself as a higher-end option, but it feels more like a fast food joint trying to look fancy. If you're craving a quick pizza fix, it's certainly not terrible, but you're likely paying for the branding more than the actual taste. And when you've got quality pizza options all around, Papa John's just doesn't stand out anymore. Now, we've covered some pizza chains, but the next one on this list will show you that it's not just the pizza chains that need to rethink their game. Get ready for something that hits a bit closer to home. Number 4, Subway. Subway is the place you head to when you're thinking, I'll get something healthy for lunch today. With all those fresh vegetables piled high, it seems like a great choice, right? But once you peel back the layers, you start to realize that Subway's healthy image is more like a marketing gimmick than a reality. Let's start with the bread, a core part of the Subway experience. The first problem, it's not as fresh as they'd have you believe. Most of the bread is pre-made, frozen, and simply baked off in store. It's not that warm, fresh out the oven smell you'd expect, and it often lacks the fluffy texture you want from a freshly baked loaf. Instead, it's chewy in an almost rubbery way. When you grab that sandwich, it's clear. It's not the artisan bread they claim it to be. Now, let's talk about the veggies. Subway touts its fresh ingredients, but after a few bites, you begin to realize that some of them just aren't that fresh. The lettuce often wilts quickly, and the tomatoes can be watery and mushy. They look good when they're first placed on your sandwich, but once you bite in, they're limp and bland. Cucumbers, don't even get me started. They're often too thick, lacking crunch, or simply unseasoned, leaving you feeling like something's missing. And then there's the meat. Subway gives you a range of options, but let's be honest, most of them are processed and underwhelming. The turkey and chicken tend to be dry and lack the flavors you'd expect from freshly cooked meat. The ham is often too salty, and the bacon can be chewy, not crispy. The entire sandwich experience seems to fall apart as you realize the meat is just an afterthought, not the star of the show. And to top it off, there have been numerous reports of hygiene concerns at Subway locations. The fresh ingredients are often prepared in less than ideal conditions, and staff can be seen handling food without gloves, which leads to an overall lack of confidence in the food handling process. With reports of unsanitary surfaces and improperly stored food, it's easy to question whether the so-called fresh food you're eating has really been handled with care. So, next time you're craving a sandwich, ask yourself, is it really worth the hassle and disappointment? Subway's fresh promise is becoming increasingly hard to believe, and it's clear that the chain isn't living up to the standards it once promised. Now that we've covered a chain that's falling short on freshness and quality, let's move on to another fast food giant that's starting to show cracks in its foundation. You may love it, but Burger King is on its way down. Number 3, Burger King. Burger King has long prided itself on the flame-grilled Whopper, the burger that promises that smoky, grilled flavor that everyone craves. But here's the thing, after taking a bite, you'll quickly realize that the flame isn't quite as hot as it once was. And the promises of juicy burgers might leave you wondering if the Whopper is living up to the hype. Let's begin with the flame-grilled promise. The idea of grilling burgers over an open flame sounds enticing, but when you actually get the burger, it's clear that the charred flavor often overpowers the taste of the meat itself. Instead of the subtle, smoky touch that a flame-grilled burger should have, you get something that tastes more like a burnt offering than a gourmet burger. The problem? The meat can end up dry and chewy, leaving you longing for the juicy bite you expected. But it's not just the Whopper that's falling short. Burger King's burgers are often criticized for being thin and overcooked, and the patty itself doesn't provide the rich, juicy flavor that you'd hope for in a burger. Many people report that the flame grill technique is not enough to save the burger when it's poorly executed. The meat often ends up underwhelming, and instead of a satisfying, hearty bite, you get something that's more reminiscent of cardboard than a premium burger. And then there are the fries. If you've ever had a batch of Burger King fries, you know they can be greasy and soggy, often drenched in salt that leaves you feeling regretful after just a few bites. Burger King's fries can sometimes feel like an afterthought, poorly prepared and under-seasoned. And when the fries are bad, it drags down the whole meal, especially when you're looking for something that complements your burger. But the most frustrating part of Burger King's downfall is the service. Long wait times, incorrect orders, and inconsistent quality plague many locations. You could have a great experience one day, and the next, you're left with cold food and frustration. Burger King's reputation for poor service and inconsistent food quality has become a real problem, and it's hard to ignore when you're hungry and want something that will hit the spot. So, while the flame-grilled Whopper may sound enticing, it's clear that Burger King is struggling to deliver on its promises. And with so many other burger joints out there offering better quality and consistency, Burger King's flame is starting to flicker out. Number 2, KFC. KFC, the place you go for fried chicken, right? But have you ever wondered what happens behind those shiny restaurant doors? If you think you're biting into the perfect, crispy, golden piece of chicken, well, think again. KFC has long been the go-to for that deep-fried comfort food, but the cracks in their recipe are starting to show. Let's talk food safety, because KFC has had a rocky history with this. Remember the 2018 UK chicken shortage? You know, when most of the KFC locations had to shut down for several days because their chicken supplier couldn't meet demand. The whole fiasco was a huge hit to the brand's credibility. But it wasn't just a supply chain issue. It exposed how dependent KFC was on their suppliers, leaving many wondering how often they're actually getting fresh chicken in their stores. Even before this, there have been reports of foodborne illnesses linked to poorly handled chicken in multiple locations. But there's more. The quality of the chicken can vary greatly from one KFC to the next. You might get a crispy, golden drumstick one day, only for your next meal to be soggy, greasy, and poorly cooked. Overfried chicken is another big issue. Sometimes KFC seems to throw the chicken in the fryer for too long, leaving you with a crispy outer layer that's more of a burnt shell than a delicious crunch. Inside, you might find the meat dry, under-seasoned, and lacking that juicy flavor that fried chicken should have. And let's not even talk about the sides. The mashed potatoes and gravy are supposed to be comfort food, but instead, you end up with bland, thick goo that doesn't quite live up to the hype. Fries, they're often soggy, and the coleslaw can be inconsistent. Not all locations are the same, and that's the problem. So, while KFC may have been the fried chicken king once upon a time, it's clear they've lost their crown. If you're thinking about stopping by for your usual, maybe it's time to think twice. There are better, fresher options out there. But hold up, the next one on our list will seriously make you rethink everything you thought you knew about fast food giants. Get ready for McDonald's, the chain that's been slipping for years without anyone really noticing. Number 1, McDonald's. McDonald's, the golden arches that have been a global staple for decades. We all know the drill. You're in the mood for something quick, cheap, and familiar, so you hit up the drive-thru for a burger and fries. But hold on, what if I told you that some of McDonald's most popular items aren't even worth the calories? Let's break it down. First, the quality inconsistencies. How many times have you gotten that Big Mac only for the buns to be soggy, the burger too cold, or the fries limp and greasy? Cold fries are a constant complaint, and it's not just a one-time issue. This happens at multiple locations around the UK. You'd think a billion-dollar corporation could at least manage to serve up consistently hot fries, but no. Worse, you might find yourself facing a burger that's slapped together with underwhelming ingredients, leaving you wondering if this really was the meal you were craving. The experience varies drastically depending on where you are. One location, everything's fresh. The next, you're left with a mess of soggy, wilted lettuce and a sad, cold patty. Then there's the over-reliance on frozen, pre-cooked ingredients. We all know McDonald's is quick, but when the meat patty is more likely to come from the freezer than the grill, you're not exactly getting the fresh quality you deserve. The pre-cooked chicken sandwiches, the reheated fries, and the pre-assembled salads all contribute to the problem. McDonald's has made its billions through speed, but that's come at the expense of freshness. And let's not forget about the hygiene issues. Customers have reported dirty surfaces, improperly stored food, and even instances of undercooked meat. Now, the employee turnover, it's sky high. And why is that a problem? Because when staff aren't properly trained, mistakes are made. People forget to check for food quality, orders get messed up, and suddenly, you're sitting with an order that looks like it's been slapped together by a tired, untrained worker. Not exactly the experience you're paying for, right? McDonald's might still be the most convenient fast food chain out there, but the quality of food and service often doesn't match the convenience. It's a classic case of a fast food empire that's been riding the coattails of nostalgia while the food keeps slipping. It's time to face the truth. McDonald's is becoming the fast food equivalent of a once great band that's lost its edge. So, there you have it, the 8 UK fast food chains you probably shouldn't trust anymore. Next time you're in the mood for a quick bite, just think about what's really behind those golden arches, the flame-grilled claims, or the frozen fish fillets. Do yourself a favor and make sure your fast food experience isn't a total letdown. But hey, we're not here to tell you where to eat, we're just giving you the facts. So, if you've had a bad experience with any of these chains, or if you think we missed one that deserves a spot on the list, let us know in the comments. What's your take? Do you still love some of these places? Or are you already planning your next fast food rebellion? If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more insider info on the fast food world, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more shocking revelations. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful, because trust me, you'll want to be the one who knows where not to eat before your friends do.